Now, I would like to invite Dr. Manodha, Managing Director of Intelligent Solution and Consultancy Limited, Sri Lanka, for the keynote speech. Dr. Gamage has received PhD in ICT and Communication Engineering from University of Electronics Communication in Tokyo, Japan in 2006. He is a telecommunication engineer, ICT consultant, university lecturer visiting in many universities, and a popular trainer in ICT industry. He has been a resource person for more than a decade. So Dr. Manodha Garmage will be delivering keynote speech on evolution of technologies and trends in innovation, the role of policy makers and regulators. Thank you. I would like to request Mr. Garmage for his presentation.
Thank you, Alicia. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I think you got to give me the rights to share my screen.
Yes, Dr. Gamage, now you can share your screen.
Okay, thank you. I hope all of you can see the screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yeah. Okay. So once again, thank you very much for inviting me to do this keynote at this important workshop and conference. And it's a great pleasure to be with you all and share a few thoughts as usual. So I start with the topic is evolution of technologies and trends in innovation, and more specifically we'll talk about the role of the policymakers and the regulators, that the governments and the regulators. And I first would like to draw your attention to the evolution of the internet when we talk about the trends and evolution of the technologies, because in today's world, technology evolutions are always driven by the internet evolution. We can see it from what has happened in the last couple of decades. So if you look at the how the internet evolved in the first 10 years of internet before 2000, it was called the Web 1, which was kind of a read-only web, where we could download using a browser whatever that is uploaded and hosted in the internet. And so it was just a downloading and reading or viewing facility we had in the Web 1. When it came to the Web 2, after 10 years, like next 10 years, it was more of a read-write web, which means it's not just downloading the data from internet, but also we could write back in the internet, upload things. That's with the social media and the YouTube like applications coming up. We were able to do that, interact with the internet. And now the Web 3 has been much more interactive and more personalized web, where the web learns about you and it gives a more personalized kind of a service to you. They know where you are, what you do, what you are interested in, what you are looking for. Before even you look for it, it tells you, okay, if you are looking for a house, for example, he knows that, and he will tell you that these areas you have houses to be sold and you can try this and whatever. So that kind of an intelligence is built into the internet today. And also the latest topic that comes with the next generation of the internet will be to connect the things to the internet, so Internet of Things. And so that's the killer application in the internet. And so as a result, internet is no more a tool, but it's a lifestyle, and we all are living in it. And there's no option. I mean, we need to embrace it more and more. And all our technologies, the evolving technologies, are aligned with this internet evolution. So we can see it if you take a simple example. In the past, with the Web 1, we saw ADSL-like technologies coming up, and then 3G came up in the wireless world. When the downlink was not enough and uplink was required, then HSUPA came up, and HSPA together with HSDPA came up in the wireless world. And so today we have more 4G LTE handling both uplink and downlink side. And with the trends of Internet of Things, we can see we are talking about, and already we are experiencing in some places, 5G technology. So this is how the mobile broadband and the broadband technologies have evolved in line with the internet evolution. The other technologies are the same. Not only the mobile broadband, but things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, then hyperconverged infrastructure and software-defined data centers. The cloud, hybrid clouds are more or less getting outdated now, because we are talking about multi-cloud environment where you have the in-house cloud, private cloud, as well as public, many clouds, not just one public cloud. And then we are talking about data analytics, and the latest topic is the blockchain, with a lot of applications coming in. So some of these sessions are there in this conference organized for, like, say, for IoT, for blockchain, and so on, which will have more opportunities to discuss these topics more detail. So with the internet evolving this much, we are already into fourth industrial revolution, and so the internet is a kind of internet of value. It's giving the value, and as long as internet provides you value, that's where you invest in this, and other technologies evolve around this. So the fourth industrial revolution, and beyond that is what we are experiencing now. And the third revolution actually started the real first information revolution. So with the third industrial revolution, and then with today, the fourth industrial revolution, now we see data is the strength. Data is the new oil for everybody, so valuable resource. And therefore, we need to be very, very careful of the how and what ways we collect data, and what data do we collect, and how we keep them, how we protect them, how to protect the privacy, the security of data, and how we process them, and how that information is being used. So a lot of research is going on this area today, and with the other technologies like AI and big data, multi-cloud environments, security, etc. You see the real fourth industrial revolution, and that's the second information revolution. Again, delivering the internet of value for us. So we have been experiencing some paradigm change for the last, say, 25 years or maybe 20 years in the mobile broadband, in the fixed line broadband, and in ICT. But now is the time to expedite that further, and we see instead of highways, we are talking about information highways. Instead of shopping malls, we are talking about online shopping platforms. Instead of traditional classroom education, we are talking about blended education. Then media has changed drastically. So basically, instead of commuting, we are talking about, instead of talking about more of communication, and this has expedited drastically for the last 2 years with the COVID pandemic, and in a way, certain things are exposed. Some issues are bigger than we thought. So like connectivity, lack of connectivity, especially in the rural communities, and the quality issues we have, the bandwidth issues we have, and the lack of frameworks in certain applications in certain parts of the world. Then the lack of training, the literacy, and the content to be delivered over these frameworks or systems, and obviously the lack of capability and smart device availability are some of the issues that are exposed with the recent pandemic. And so if you look at the challenges for the regulators in this with the new trends in technology, one is, of course, the challenge of protecting data. Now, what regulations and compliance we have for data protection? So instead of the protection of infrastructure, the data protection probably is more prominent now. And also the with the dynamic development of the technology, and we need to be on top of these technologies, and it's very fast moving and very dynamic environment. Therefore, that's not an easy task for the regulators. Also, managing the proliferation of cloud services. Now it's into already multi-cloud. And then new business models that are coming up with this environment, how to regulate those applications and mobile apps like things as well. And then also the privacy issue, and maybe with the security becoming more prominent, the surveillance, and is it voluntary or it's forced on you, or those are some of the things that we need to address, and some of the difficult areas for regulator to handle. And also again data protection, and trying to overcome the cloud-like and app-like issues with the kind of traditional tools available with the regulators. So these are some of the challenges that regulators face today. And but the key driving the drivers for the regulators and for the innovation are some of the changes that are happening, like dynamic technology changes are having very fast, very exponential growth we see. And as a result, you see new business models coming up, and these business models, as a result of these business models, sometimes the barriers that you usually have to enter into certain markets are shrinking now. So it's opening for many people. So even it's not the big fish eating small fish always. It's like if you are innovative enough, there are plenty of startups and small businesses that are coming up with new business models, and therefore there's no way of ignoring until you are big. There's no such thing anymore. So size is not material, it's what you innovate is what materials more. And so which means there's a rise of business ecosystem where these many different and diverse parties dynamically co-evolving, and they are creating and capturing new value with the technologies, and they do it through collaboration and competition. Some people they are very much into it and they do it, but as a country, as a unit of ICT sector of any country, we need to have more and more such parties collaborating and also competing to extract these new values using the new business models and the business ecosystems. So the regulator's role is to try and initiate more of these things, try and motivate them to do more of innovation, and at the same time to regulate this to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand as well. It's not an easy task. It's everything is new, and so we are kind of in a catch-22 situation with the fast-moving technologies. So regulators are usually they don't jump in and take action due to certain uncertainties of the technology. They are not sure which way it could go, and therefore without a new regulatory framework, probably the innovators are also not sure. So the companies will not take any drastic actions either. As a result, it's like both sides are waiting for each other, and so the result is new technologies are delayed, innovation is delayed, and not properly regulated either. So therefore, this is a kind of a dilemma, I would say, and regulators need to address this. So no doubt that there is a disruption due to the dynamic and new technologies coming up, but at the same time, this disruption is the opportunity as well, specifically for innovators. So if you are not innovator, probably this disruption can disrupt you, and you can even get eliminated as well. That's a normal phenomenon. So for us to come out of this, probably the government and the regulator, probably they can make some changes in the way that they do things, where the government is as a user and as an infrastructure provider, probably they can invest more, have more clear long-term guidelines and more clear long-term roadmaps, so that innovators know exactly the direction. So some of the projects that we have seen around the world, like smart city projects, where these new technologies are being used, and obviously the investment and the motivation for the investment is coming from the governments, the policymakers, and the regulators. So the innovators can do their part. So therefore, instead of the traditional regulatory watchdog kind of role of the regulator, probably they are there to encourage more of governments to initiate the certain projects that will drive certain sectors of the trends of the new technologies. Now, we all know that the principles of the policies and regulations, probably we need to revisit them and do some modifications to suit the current technological trends. Therefore, maybe we have to be more consistent and more coordinated kind of a framework, which should be flexible enough to accommodate the current latest technologies as well as the new technologies to come. And also they should motivate the innovation, as I explained earlier. And usually the regulation should happen based on evidence. It's not just the traditional conventional regulation. And obviously we should encourage all technologies, and it should be technology neutral, as we always say. And more importantly, we should know what are the best practices, what are the standards that are most suitable for each territory. And while we are working together as a region, also we need to see what are the best practices and the guidelines for each country as well. So the value chain for innovation is, as we know, the regulators are usually regulating the service providers, telcos. And today we can see they are interacting with the technology providers like IoT, AI, blockchain, could be young companies. Youth is very much into these technologies, developers and application developers. So they all work together, and then they are supplying services to other organizations who are deploying these technologies like banks or utility companies or whatever. And they there are many other government agencies and departments and other regulators, like say, for example, if you want to do say use blockchain for cryptocurrency or something, it's of course the central banks and those regulators have to play a huge role as well. So those parties are coming into the picture as well. And there are many other verticals like the research institutions, the universities. So they all are adding or making contributions to this value chain of innovation. So do we really need a technology regulator today, or can the traditional telecom regulator can handle all this as well? So that is something probably we need to think more. And I believe strongly that these technologies need a lot of expertise. As a result, we need to have think tanks handling or contributing to the knowledge. And so some of the trends that we see are cloud computing, mobile apps, big data, a lot of smart technologies, virtual reality, augmented reality, and so on. So all regulators and the policymakers should have access to this expert knowledge. Probably it's not possible practically to possess all these technologies and the expertise within the same organization. So as a result of these trends and their dynamic nature of dynamic variations, it's necessary that each regulator works with many experts, and that's where the think tank could help a lot. So the suggested process for a regulator to handle these dynamic variations in the technology and the trends of the technology. Instead of regulators should initiate the national policies and get the government support, and they probably need external expertise to work with them. And so there should be a think tank which is driving the innovations and new technologies for any country. And that consists of different parties, different agencies, and all expertise should work together. That's where the collaboration is very important. And different international forums should, like APT, should contribute as well. That's where we need to collaborate with all these parties. And finally, as an output of all this, we should be having the final national policies on technologies, the guidelines for privacy and security, and the national, also the national technology roadmaps that that needs to be there to help the innovators. And so the conclusion is that the governments and the regulators should have national policies and roadmaps for the technologies that are the latest technologies that are coming in. And regulators should publish very clear guidelines related to the protocols that to be followed, and then maybe about the spectrum, maybe about the security, privacy, and so on. And so the all stakeholders should be encouraged more to use these technologies, and with the guidelines and roadmaps published, they should be able to invest more in this as well. So regulator the government and the regulators would have to play a role as a user and infrastructure provider to a certain extent as well. Then obviously knowledge is the key matter for this, and very vital ingredient to be successful, knowledge and the skill. At the same time, the collaboration with local parties as well as overseas parties, all should collaborate and help each other, because there is a lot of opportunities, and if you are innovative enough, there is hardly any competition could be there, because the pie is so big and everybody has opportunities. So let's work together, and I strongly believe the value of think tanks in this process is very, very important. So in conclusion, if we, with the dynamic changes and the trends in technology, I think it's disrupting all our existing models, business models, ecosystems, but the disruption is the opportunity as well. So therefore, we need to do the real innovation to make use of that opportunity. And if you don't, then you will be the disturbed party. So let's be on this side. Let's be on the side of the disruption side with the innovation, and grab the opportunity rather than getting disrupted by this innovation. So I think that's it from me. Thank you very much for your time. And once again, I thank APT for inviting me for this keynote presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manodha for your kind keynote speech and giving us the brief explanation of the new trends and technologies. We really appreciate your sharing your knowledge. So moving forward to the workshop,